Hi. Okay, I wanted to give you some feedback on today, and you're probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, they are jumpy. Yes, they're squirrely, but that is beside the point. I know that's the hard part, but let me start by just saying what I'm going to talk about is what you did, how you had it planned, and I'm going to sort of think about what I might do, and I'm going to use and give you sort of perspective that way. And then I'm also going to use the next step forward to guided reading, because that appears to be your model, and I don't see a whole lot of that model being used. So anyway, first of all, it looked like, and I may be completely wrong, that you started out with the big book about the truck, because that is the book that's used in the regular classroom. And so your purpose is to introduce it to them, the vocabulary, the concepts, so that they can participate in the regular classroom and learn from that. Makes perfect sense to me. But I want to go back to thinking about how you plan for going through that book. And there is some information. I do refer to the next step in guided reading about how you, I'm assuming this is more of a shared reading than something that they will read, because it might be above their level. And so I want to know exactly what I want to accomplish. Student will be able to talk about the big ideas or the main points of the text. What are the big ideas? You have to go back in and figure out, what exactly do I want them to take from this text? What's the point? Otherwise, you're all over the board. So I figured out a couple of concept statements. Again, going back to that. It's very unusual to be picked up by a semi-trailer, a big red truck. It's different. And so that's part of the point. The other is this idea of anticipating and thinking about it all day. Both of them are thinking about it all day. So this idea of anticipation, and the fact is that sometimes the anticipation, it turns out, and sometimes it doesn't. And so that's a big concept. And then what are the key vocabulary, which I didn't see that you got to today, but tanker truck. I didn't hear you use that term. I heard traffic jam. There are probably others, like I bet excited is in there as well, but only pick a few. But you have to set it up before you read it. Get them into the book. In the next steps to guided reading on page 39, there is this how you do a picture preview, which is what you were doing. You ask them to talk about the picture. You're asking them questions. It was like you were wanting them to get the story without reading it. Well, we're not there yet. We're really now at this point of where you're trying to make predictions. You're trying to look at the clues and make some predictions and get the big ideas so that when you read it, you'll understand it. So this whole idea about making predictions. Don't tell them the whole story. You really want to get them interested, to get them excited about reading the book, and think about their own experience about being picked up or anticipating something. And then reading the text, you may read it on the second day. Again, I don't know what your routine is, but if it's a shared reading, you may put the book on a stand and use a pointer there to read with you. So it's like echo reading. The boys paid great attention when they were reading books. When books were involved, they were right on it. When you started doing other things, they lost it. But when they had a book in front of them, they were actually pretty good. So what is your main purpose for reading this text? If it is to prepare them for the regular classroom, then what you want them to take from it are the main concepts, the vocabulary, and then this one-on-one correspondence in a shared reading. Here's what I would do. I would introduce the concept. Who picks you up after school? What kind of vehicle do they use? Oh, a car, blue car. I would spend a minute on that. Go just right through. Look at the front cover to make predictions. So just look at the front cover. Look at the title. Make predictions. What do they think it's going to be about? Quick review of vocabulary that's in this story. So these are the words we're going to look for when we read the text. And you might have 4 or 5. That's it. With a really simple definition. Then do the picture walk with the main question being, what do you see in this picture? Or, what do you think is going to happen? Oh, okay. You're not confirming or not confirming. You're pulling it from them. That's their skill. That's what you're building in terms of their own skills. Read the story chorally. If they meet a vocabulary, you might have the vocabulary words up on a chart. I wouldn't put them here. I would put them on a chart. And when you meet them, you say, oh, there's our vocabulary word. And then read the text. And then go back to the main concepts about something being different, unusual, exciting, and just those main concepts. Again, just 2 minutes. You spend a lot of time on one thing when you've got a lot to move through. So I try and give you some minute markers there. If you want to spread this over 2 days, I would review on the second day, I would review the vocabulary again, and I would complete a story map or story retelling, or as you had talked about, maybe doing the sequence of the story. And then I might also extend their learning by, each of these books has a set of vocabulary. If you keep those vocabulary on cards in a word bank, you can pull those out and you can do lots of things with them in terms of word sorts, and I give you some ideas there. So I'm wondering if you can create a routine, something that you do when you do a shared reading of the book in the regular classroom. What exactly do you want them to learn from that, and what's your routine? Then you move to centers. They didn't actually have centers. It was where you were doing the word family eggs, the CVC pictures. So you are working with both. I don't know if this is footprints. This must be from Footprints. And I don't know if you read the book on underwater before or if this is the first day to read underwater. But again, we need some routines with this as well. If the goal, and it was in the Footprints, the goal was rhyme. If the goal is rhyme, her activity was actually pretty good. You needed to break this down because they did not get the eggs. They actually did not understand that you were working on word families, that you were working on words that rhyme, that are in word families, and that and so they just didn't have that concept. You need to tell them what you're doing, and so that's what I would start with. Is I would start with, here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at words that rhyme. Now you've got to establish what is a rhyme. Give them 2 words. Do these 2 words rhyme? Do they not rhyme? You might have a whiteboard and you might be demonstrating to them. Fan, pan. Look at what's the same. Look at what's different. That you have to have an introduction because they won't understand. And they have to use the word rhyme. That's the academic language. So my point is, while the eggs were a good idea, I would not start there. That would be the end. You have to introduce the concept. And then you have to know what you want them to do. Again, I keep going back to what's the purpose? What do you want them to do? You want them to identify, now this is my lesson that I might plan. I would want them to identify if words rhyme or don't rhyme. And that actually is from your Footprints sheet, which is good. If rhyme is the focus, okay, then I want them to be able to blend the onset and the rhyme. So the onset being the consonant and the rhyme chunk. So I want them to be able to do that. I can't work on a bunch of families. I might pick 2 families to start with, and then I might add another family the next day, another family the next day, another family the next day. And then I want them to be able to read words that rhyme in those families. So those are the 3 things I'm working towards. And it really would be my focus for the whole week. For the small group activity, here's what I would do. I got to introduce the concept. So I would introduce the concept of rhyme, show them the word pairs that rhyme and word pairs that don't. Give them examples. Rhyme, don't rhyme. Rhyme, don't rhyme. Again, I'm 3 examples, 4 examples, 2 minutes max. Have them listen to pairs of words that rhyme and don't rhyme. The activity and now this is their turns. First I modeled it, I showed them, and now I'm going to have them do it. So I give them 10 trials of words and have them sort. And then you may have to model the decision making on this. Then I would introduce the eggs, but I would break it down. Again, this egg is for the word family AT. And let's look at all the words it makes with AT. Fat, pat. You're modeling because they don't get it. I also added, maybe I would put, if it's AT, I might give them the card AT and then use cards so that you can help them blend and see. Fat, fat. This is the end. This is the start. This is the first sound. Fat, mat. And they need practice. And so I would just work with 2-word families. And then after I do that, then I could actually maybe give them an egg to go on their own and to make all the words and write them down, right? And then their job is to come back, read the words they've made, and then they would trade, and they would each read the words of the other person, so they get practice with both families. And then my exit ticket, this is how I know that they got it or didn't get it, is I'd give them 2 words. Tell me, rhyme, don't rhyme. And I might do a couple of examples. And then I might have them write the word hat, and then I want them to write a word that rhymes with hat. That's going to tell me a lot about whether they got it or not. Oh, okay, so that's basically about what I saw today. But here's the deal. If you're using Next Steps for Guided Reading or Footprints, I'm sure she's incorporating many of the same activities. I would really like an assessment summary, which is on page 61 of this text, for each of the students. That tells me what they know, what they don't know. And they are in Emergent, books A through C. I would want to keep running tabs on their ability to recognize key sight words. So you are building sight words, and hopefully you're building a word wall that has the sight words. You could have an individual word wall if there's some space on the wall. But there's a lot of sight word work that goes on, the sort of initial sight word work that goes on in level A. So, and then I would want you to start incorporating some of the routines that she has. So for sight words, they write at the beginning of a guided reading lesson, they write 3 of the sight words that you know they know. They're writing them on whiteboards, they're writing them in their sight word book, it doesn't matter, but they get practice on that. And then there are 4 activities for teaching sight words. So I'm going to expect you're teaching sight words pretty regularly as well. And one of these routines is use one of the routines. There is making words, which is also one of the ways you could have done this activity on rhyming. But she has a whole set of steps for making words. And I'm sure you're doing that. I've seen you do that before. But why aren't we doing it necessarily with this group? Sound boxes, again, there are specific instructions for that. Guided reading, guided writing, so I didn't see that, and that's a really good routine. So I'm going to have to shut off this video and do another one. I've got one more short one to do, so I'll be back.